And yes, indeed, welcome to the Carolina Contractor Show. My name is Eric Smith, and across from me, General Contractor Donnie Blanchard. How are you doing, Donnie?
Doing wonderful. How about yourself, sir?
Fantastic. And we've got a guest on today's show, but we're not going to spoil that secret yet.
Right.
We always like to have guests, but we want to tell you a little bit about the show first. Go to the website, thecarolinacontractor.com. That's where you can find information about what we talk about. And it's about your house. We're talking about the inside, the outside. We talk about roofs, and we talk about basements and crawl spaces, and we talk about grilling and things you can do outside your house in the summer, like put in a pool with a stereo. We have kind of done that before, haven't we?
Sure thing. Yes, sir.
And you can also find links to other things like podcasts. So if you missed a past show of the Carolina Contractor, go to thecarolinacontractor.com, click on the podcast page, download it there. We also have the Facebook page up. And our favorite part of the show, Ask the Contractor, which of course would be Donnie, the general contractor. If you have a question about your house, again, it doesn't matter what part of the house it is, go ahead and click on that button, submit your information. Donnie reads all the questions. He'll give you personal answers. And if we have time at the end of the show, we'd like to answer a few of those questions, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, let's jump into the show because I think it's going to be some good timing considering we're entering cold weather and people have issues with their heating system and, of course, in the summer, AC. So why don't you go ahead and introduce your guest, Donnie?
Today we brought in Josh Vargas. Josh's specialty is heating and air, and Josh is a listener of the show, and we've had a working relationship for about 10 years, and he's just really good at what he does. So I appreciate you giving us your time today, sir. And if you'd like to tell everybody how you got into heating and air, I think that'd be a good intro.
Yeah. So I've been in the heating and air business for 6 years now. I was actually managing a diesel shop, and the company Boer Brothers were my biggest customer, and they saw they saw something in me, and they said, "Hey, we'd love for you to come on. We're growing. We need a salesperson." And I said, "I don't know anything about heating and air." And they said, "Yes, but we can train you."
Yep.
And so a lot of continuing education and now, the rest is history.
Didn't you tell me that they had 20 employees and now they have 70?
Yes, when I started, there was about 20 employees. Now we have about 72. So things have changed a lot.
Right. If we were going to dive into this, I'd say let's just start simple. People refer to your heating and air system as HVAC. Can you explain what the acronym HVAC means?
Yes, absolutely. We get this all the time. I go in and people say, "Oh, my HVAC guy's here," and it sounds a lot like hazmat, so I don't really like that. But it's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. That's what we do.
Awesome. And if you had to say that you specialize in one system over another, can you just kind of give a breakdown of the systems that you guys put in typically?
Yes. So we specialize. We do some commercial, but we specialize in your higher end. We sell train equipment. So we specialize in your heat pumps, which is all electric heating and cooling, to your split systems that have gas, to package systems, gas, heat pumps. Right now, the big thing is mini splits. We do ducted and ductless. We also do geothermal. And a big thing right now is a lot of people are moving to the outskirts, right? A lot of people are moving to the country, and the only source is propane. That is the most expensive way to heat a home.
Not a fan.
No, it's good for the propane company. And so what we do is we come in and we can put in a heat pump that has a furnace for backup heat. A lot of people say, "Oh, heat pump, they don't work really well." It's changed. The heat pump it can heat down to about 20 degrees outside. So then it switches over to the furnace and uses the propane. So I have customers that after a year, they've saved 60 to 70% on their propane bill.
I think where we live in our region, that's better for a heat pump. If you go further north and it gets even colder than it does here, I don't know that it's a great fit. But for where we live, I think that's probably the most economical option. And you mentioned mini splits were more popular. What situation calls for a mini split?
So mini splits, I do a lot of mini splits in your rooms over garages. They're always, I don't care, they're always hot or cold. So we put them in there. We put them down in basements, put them in sunrooms. Eric jokes a lot about his mother-in-law, so mother-in-law suite, the building in your backyard. I've done everything from mini splits in an attic for Christmas decorations, just family heirlooms, all the way to a storage building. And we do whole homes with mini splits too.
Right.
Very, very tightly built homes. You don't need a lot of air conditioning. And mini splits, they can ramp up and ramp down. So they only use the amount of electricity that they need. So they're really, really good for tight homes and smaller spaces.
Well, when you go into a house, what determines which system you lean towards? So what's your evaluation process?
Yeah, when I go into a house, I ask a lot of questions. When you're making a purchase, Donnie always talks about heating and air and roofing. Those are your two big ticket items for your house,
Right.
and they're the two most important. And so when I go into a house, I want to know, hey, did your old unit keep you comfortable? Are there hot and cold spots? Do you have asthma, allergies? What's your expectations out of a new unit? Have you been happy with your electric bill? Have you been happy with your gas bill? And any time that a comfort, we call them comfort specialists, come into your house, they should ask a lot of questions. The more questions you ask, the better solution you're going to have to that problem, right? And a lot of times in heat and air, you don't think about it till it doesn't work, and then it turns into an emergency.
Yeah, and I cut all of it out.
Okay. Also, I always ask homeowners, how long do you plan on being in the house? I have a lot of customers that they'll say, I plan on dying in this house. And side note, I hope it's not while I'm there.
That's uncomfortable.
But that's an important question, because if you're only going to be there for 5 or 6 years, the most high efficiency unit may not be the best option for you.
Right.
But if you say, this is my forever home, you spend that more money up front, and it's going to come back to you.
Right. In the situation where you go into a house and just say their insulation isn't up to snuff, or do you recommend that they do the insulation package on top of the heating and air? Or in other words, if the insulation is upgraded, that changes the type of system that you would recommend.
Absolutely. If they go in and upgrade their insulation, and people are encapsulating attics and crawl spaces, that heat load's not as large as it once was.
Yep.
So what we do is we do what's called a load calculation. Essentially, I come in, draw out the whole house, put in the windows insulation value, which way is north, and it'll tell us, hey, this is the new load. This is what you need. And that is based on a 95-degree day. You should be able to achieve a 20-degree temperature differential. You can achieve more than that, especially with these newer units. But in our area, that is the code. You must have at least a 20-degree variance.
Right. And just to explain to folks listening, what he's saying is that the rule of thumb with a heat pump has always been, if it's a 95 degrees, your heat pump can only get that down to 75 unless the temperature was less when it started. So if you had the system completely off, like you're on vacation, and that's when it gets tough to drop at 20 degrees. In a scenario where, say, it's cooler that morning and the house doesn't get up to 90 or 95, it's just staying around, say, 80 with no supply in the house at all, then it could technically get it down 20 degrees from where it started, not what the ambient temperature is outside.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
And you think a lot of the times, this is how your heat and air system is designed for those days. How many of those days do we actually have? We have them in the summer, but really a lot of houses, they're oversized for the majority of the year.
Right.
And that's where you have a lot of issues. A unit oversized, it will cause a lot more harm than it will good.
Yeah, the humidity issues, it cycles on and off so fast because it's oversized, it doesn't dehumidify the air properly. Is that right?
That's correct. It just dumps a bunch of cold air in and can't get that hot air out.
Right, makes sense. If you were moving forward with a new customer and you had 3 things you wanted to advise, what would your top 3 pieces of advice be?
Comfort, efficiency, and then we always try to give them a few tips on how they can reduce their energy consumption and save money. The big one for me is comfort. Comfort, it has a lot to do with your indoor air quality. With COVID, we've heard a lot more about indoor air quality. Where at Bohr, we've always preached indoor air quality. You breathe in, this is a very fun fact, but you breathe in over 2,000 gallons of air a day. And your home is your sanctuary, right?
I didn't know
So I know it's
one of the geekier facts I've ever heard, but it's still fascinating.
It is, and I had to fact check it because I had learned this when I first started in the business, and then I was like, that just sounds crazy, but it's true. So if you address the comfort issues, and a big one is humidity. We're all about the variable speed units, and variable speed, true variable speed has about 700 different speeds it can go in.
Wow.
So what that means is, like on a really hot day, your unit may run 22 hours out of the day, but it's consuming 60% less electricity than it's starting and stopping. Because just like a car, the hardest time on a unit is when it's starting. So if it can start and run longer, and you reduce those start and stop cycles, that takes that humidity out.
Right.
Because it's going way down, and then if it gets really hot at 2 o'clock, it'll dump all that cold air, get all the hot air out, revert back down into a lower setting.
All right, you just made me think of a question then. So if a homeowner is sitting at home and they notice their unit is constantly cycling off and on, and it's not maybe the newest system with a variable system like you said, is there something they should do maybe to alleviate that process, or can that be done? Like just either raise it higher so it's always on, or lower it till it stays off most of the time?
Typically, Eric, if it's starting and stopping, a lot of times on an older unit, that's a sign that things are starting to go wrong. A lot of the times that can be a low refrigerant charge. Because the unit will start to cycle on and off, on and off. You can raise the temperature or lower it, to have a longer run time. But the older units, they're machines, right? They're just made to turn on, run, wait, turn off, wait until it gets about 5 degrees hotter inside, and then it turns back on.
Right. No smart element there.
No, there's no smart element at all.
How about efficiency? You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, efficiency. That's a huge thing for us. I'm a big proponent of the variable speed, and yes, a lot of people say, well, of course, it's one of the bigger ticket items, but also my house is from 1970. We'll get into it in a little while, but Donnie and the Carolina contractor, we're doing a full-blown restoration, and I've put in variable speed units, sealed my crawl space, which I'm a huge proponent of. But if you can get something that's higher efficiency, you don't even think about it anymore because that unit runs. It's not like you're in bed and your significant other saying, it is cold.
Mm-hmm.
No, it takes care of itself. It is like the set it and forget it, right?
That's a nice way to put it.
And it's, they've come a long ways. A lot of units we look at, they may be a 7 SEER. And SEER, I tell people, that's for the efficiency. Think about that SEER like miles per gallon in a vehicle, right?
Mm-hmm.
The higher the SEER, the more money you're going to save, the longer run time. So a lot of those 7 SEERs, that's like an old carbureted engine. And these variable speed, it's like a Prius and a Tesla. It's, it manages itself.
That's a great analogy.
What would be a Mustang? Like a V8, a GT?
Are we talking 5.0 or?
Well, 5.0 would be good.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to do that 4.6
So I would say that'd be like about a 16 SEER.
All right. I'm just trying to get people in their mind to understand the car analogy is very good. And some guys would be like, well, I don't want a Prius HVAC.
That's right.
So maybe you could start selling the Mustang HVAC system.
Yes.
Your bills are going to double, but that's okay. It'll sound really good.
Yeah, it will. Your neighbors will not like you because it's very loud. But
it's the only HVAC system with a header pack on.
What's the minimum SEER rating by code now?
So in our area right now, it's 14. We definitely see that will change. It used to be in 2013, it was 13.
Yeah.
So it's already changed to 14. And we see in a few years it should be up to a 15.
What do you recommend? It's in a decent price range.
And when I come into a home, I always recommend, again, I ask those questions, Donnie. I always go through because I don't want to sell somebody on something that I don't think would be a good option for them, right? I always treat somebody like, hey, one day I'm not going to be in this, right? I'm going to be 70 years old. Somebody's going to come to my house like myself. And so we're honest. And really a 16 SEER for most people is good. 16 SEER has, it can ramp up and ramp down. But I tell people, we kind of give a good, better, best, and elite package, right? And again, going through those questions, typically a customer will say, these are the most important things to me, right? It's either going to be like saving money, energy, comfort, indoor air quality, or price. And based off of that, that's when I'll give my professional opinion.
Right.
Because some people, they really care about the environment. They care about, they want the most efficient thing, and they want what's best for not only their pocketbook long term, but also for their people that are in their house. And so that's a no-brainer. Variable speed. That can be 14, 15,000 or more. But again, when you're talking about comfort, efficiency, and saving the planet, it's a no-brainer.
One thing I've been told, and this is kind of in the big relationship of unit sizing, SEER ratings, is I've had other heating and air guys tell me that if the house is really over-insulated, so similar to how you size a unit at 600 square feet per ton, they say that goes up to 900 plus square feet per ton. I think you said it was a little higher than that.
Yes.
But what's the truth in terms of if the house is just super insulated, do you need that higher SEER rating, or is that a waste of money?
No, if your house is super insulated, you would do yourself a disservice by not going with a variable speed.
Okay.
We work with just a few green builders, and all the homes are super tight. Majority of the time, the heat load is about 1,500 to 2,000 square feet per ton.
Right.
So we're talking, a 5,000 square foot home can have a 3-ton unit, which would typically be about 1,500 square feet.
Right.
But you have to have something that has that longer runtime,
Right.
because a very tight house, it doesn't need that large heat load.
I see.
And so you need to be able to dehumidify and go really, really low, because again, it just doesn't have a large heat load on the house.
Right. And just to put some confirmation here that what you're saying it is gospel, that with our house, we insulated our house really well, I feel like, and we did the multi-stage unit. So of course it doesn't use the tonnage that it's capable of in the spring and the fall. In the dead of winter and the hot of summer, of course it uses everything it has. But the other thing we did is zone our upstairs, because all of our children are on different schedules and that sort of thing. But our bills are, I want to say, around 40 cents per square foot. And the rule of thumb we always preach is that $1 to $1.25 per square foot is what your utilities normally run total.
Yes.
And we're a fraction of that. So I've never done the math, but I would imagine I'll save thousands of dollars a year on my utilities.
Absolutely. I go into people's homes that are your size and even smaller, and when I start to ask them about their electric bill, a lot of times they say, I should have just bought stock.
Right.
Because they're paying $300 and $400 a month, and I'm thinking, how?
Yeah.
And then I start to look at things, and it's, minimum windows,
Mm-hmm.
right? Old windows, hardly any insulation.
Mm-hmm.
Crawl space has enough mold, they're growing mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
The attic has no insulation, and the ductwork is from, it's from the 70s. It's
Mm-hmm.
falling apart. So, they have so much underlining, right? And we come in, and, if I see a crawl space that's in bad shape, I don't do crawl spaces.
Right.
But we're a big advocate. I just had mine sealed,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, it can be costly.
Right.
But I texted Donnie right after we sealed our crawl space.
It's a good story.
My upstairs furnace went out. So yes, I do this for a living, but you can't just pull guys off a job to
Right.
come install your unit. So my wife said, well, why don't we just crank up the downstairs unit? And we did. We cranked it up to about 74, 75, and that's what we used to have to keep on my old unit, just to be comfortable. Our upstairs was like 63 degrees.
Josh's house is the one that we did the sash replacement kits on there. So these windows are super efficient. They're the latest, greatest available for a decent price. And I think, he was talking about cumulatively insulation package, windows, everything working together. Before he even had the super insulation package, he just had those windows, and it made a big difference to the tune of, 10 or 15 degrees?
15 degrees. And with the old, with my old unit, if I would have replaced that one this year, because I did, I've replaced the downstairs and now upstairs. It's been an expensive year, but it's worth it. I mean, the efficiency, when my mom and dad come over, they're older, not elderly, but older, wiser. And they like it really hot or really cold, right? And it just depends on the temperature outside, and I'll mess with them some. I can lock the thermostat out, but they're like, wow, we used to keep it like really cold in your house, and now it's like 72 degrees and it feels like 65. And I'm like, that's because that unit's running longer, and that's all that efficiency.
Are you a thermostat Nazi?
I am.
Wow.
I am.
How does Allison feel about that?
My wife does not like that. Last year, I went to Thailand for 3 weeks, and the amazing thing about that is you can lock your thermostat out anywhere in the world. And so I was messing with her, locking it out, and she would text me like, man, it's getting hot. I'm like, yeah, it's because I cut the unit off.
He fits right in over here, doesn't he?
This is the Carolina Contractor Show. Today we got Josh Fargus with Boer Brothers Heating and Cooling, and we talked about when putting in a new system, comfort is very important, efficiency. But then there's a thing, you offer also ideas how to save on your energy costs. What are some of those things that people can do, even if they're not putting in a new system just today?
Yeah, the easiest thing that I tell people, and typically most cost effective, is start with your smart thermostat. I'm a huge advocate of it. A lot of people are like, I just want to be able to turn it on or turn it off. The great thing about a smart thermostat is it can be as dumb or smart as you want it to be. It doesn't have to be overly complicated.
Well, let's address that. I just have the basic Honeywell 7-day calendar where I can set it on when we would normally leave the house pre-COVID for school.
Yes.
It would go off or go to a much lower temperature, and it would come on an hour before we came back home. But now some of these, Donnie was showing me one. I forgot the name of it.
The black one.
Yeah, so Donnie,
This is crazy.
he has the Ecobee.
That's it.
The Ecobee, you can actually set up geofencing on a lot of the the smart thermostats. So say you or your significant forget to turn the air up or down. It will learn your schedule. So when your smart device, your cell phone, leaves and gets out about a 300-yard radius, it will go into an energy saving mode. And then usually about an hour before you get home, it learns and it will turn itself on.
So this is what I've said about technology. We used to only think it was Terminator, but things like this will eventually gain self-awareness, and they will take over.
Absolutely. I mean, they could, but the great thing is you're not wasting energy when you're not home. I mean,
Right.
Who wants to heat and cool a house when you're not there?
Right.
Unless you just love giving money to the electrical company.
Yeah.
And don't they even have the ability to, quote, follow you from room to room?
They can, yes. They have remote sensors. I mean, it can get very technical. Mine gives you a live radar. It's crazy. If there's a storm coming, it will alert you. It gives you a 5-day forecast. I mean, like I said, I'm very techie, but I do this for a living, right? Mm-hmm. So I love this. And I'm a huge advocate for it. But you don't have to go and buy the $400 or $500 smart thermostat. Mm-hmm. They start about $150, and it's something typically you could do yourself. Just if you don't feel comfortable, call a HVAC professional.
Now, I'd never done that, and I got the system several years ago, the basic system, and it is easy to do. Turn off the power and look at your wires. The other thing I always say is take a picture of everything before you disassemble it.
Yes.
Because there's usually a lot of wires you have to hook back up. But it sounds intimidating to put in your own thermostat, but it's very easy to do, and the benefits are great. Because I immediately noticed you never went to work. I live an hour from my house. If the wife's at her job, I'm at mine. I hated driving into work going, I think I put the thermostat on hold. We're going to be gone 8 hours, and it's going to try to keep it at 70 degrees in the summer. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. 8 hours of nothing beneficial from it. These new ones, wow, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Out of everything we talk about, I would say that the smart thermostat probably has the quickest payback period. I mean, it's going to save you $200 the first year. So
absolutely.
After that, it's making you money.
It is. And again, Eric hit a big thing. The main thing I tell people, if you try to do this, remember to turn the power off to that.
Yeah.
Because you will blow a breaker, you will blow a fuse, probably internally, and then you are going to call
HVAC.
HVAC.
And HVAC.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's the fastest turnaround on your investment, because again, you're not wasting it. Mm-hmm. And if you forget, or you're laying in bed and you say, oh man, it's cold or hot, I know this sounds lazy, but you can literally grab your phone, which is normally on the nightstand beside you,
right,
and adjust it right there.
Absolutely.
Now, Josh, I know you're a big fan of changing, obviously, filters on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Donnie, was it you do you still have yours on auto send? Or did you at one time?
I did, but they started to build up on me, and that was my fault. So, we cut that off. So now we just have our cat litter and dog food on auto renew.
Okay. But basically, you could set it up not to forget to change out your filters by having, say, Amazon deliver them automatically. And so when you get a delivery of a new air filter for your HVAC system, there, it's sitting on the front porch. You go, oh, I'll go ahead and change these right now. But it's one of your big things on efficiency.
It is. A lot of people say, oh, well, no, I just change it every 90 days, right? No, that's not correct. Mm-hmm. You should at least check it every 30. The recommendation is to replace it every 30. And so a lot of the times I tell people, when you get your electrical bill, go ahead and change your filter. At least check it. With the smart thermostats, some of them you can actually set up where it'll remind you once a month to check that filter.
Well, if it's any good, it'll do it for you. So that's what I'm waiting for.
And not doing it properly, what's the problem there? So it chokes the unit off. It doesn't allow it to get air.
It does. It's just like I tell people with mask, right? Everybody's wearing a mask. A lot of people, it can be restrictive, right? We all need to do it though. But it's like taking this mask and trying to go work out and trying to breathe while you're doing it. I mean, this unit, it has to have enough return air back to the unit to continue to supply the fresh air, right? So if it doesn't have that air coming back, or it has restrictions on a dirty filter, it can burn a compressor up, it can shut itself off, and then you have to pay an HVAC professional to come out, and we say, oh yeah, well, it's $100, but it was just a dirty filter.
Right.
And a lot of people are very upset with that, but it's a simple thing. Just check your filter.
Okay. Donnie, I wouldn't mind. We're getting questions now,
Okay.
and can we move over to asking some questions for Josh
Absolutely.
Vargas from Bower Brothers Heating and Cooling's in? And so we've got some HVAC questions. If you have a question, it doesn't have to be about your HVAC unit, but it's at thecarolinacontractor.com. Click on the Ask the Contractor button. All right, you want to take some of these questions, Josh? You ready?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Someone just said, what changes are you seeing on the horizon for HVAC systems?
There's twofold. So in commercial right now, what we're seeing is more ventilation, more filtration. No more turning the units off at night. I know Donnie kind of spoke on this, I think 2 shows back, but when that air is not being moved, it's not being ventilated. So you have to have an air exchange, especially in commercial, because you have so many different people coming in and out. So that's the main thing. No more turning the units off. You can turn them down or turn them up, but you can't completely shut them off. Residential, higher SEER. The minimum is going to continue to go up. We see, a lot of people, they're moving towards the higher SEER because people have been home. A lot of people that worked 9 to 5 or was gone traveling, 5 days out of the week and was only home on the weekend,
Right.
They're seeing, oh, wait, my significant was right. It is hot or cold. And so they want that higher efficiency because they're home. We also see a huge thing right now with filtration. We have air scrubbers, air purifiers, and media filters. And all of that is, again, 2,000 gallons of air a day. You want it as pure as possible.
Did you say earlier when you said we breathe in 2,000 gallons of air a day, that's as much as it takes us to fill up a small swimming pool?
That's right. Not
perspective.
the Olympic size at Donnie's house, but
Oh,
the
come on.
small
Air
small
stone with the
one.
pool.
Oh, never
I've
mind.
got a 40,000 gallon in ground.
So we got to breathe for a while to fill his up.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a smaller pool, it can fill it up.
This is a question, and I don't know much about this, so maybe you can enlighten me as well. What's your take on the best way to introduce fresh air into a system? I know that a lot of units don't have fresh air intakes, and that's becoming more popular and a must in some areas.
Oh, it is. I prefer the ventilating dehumidifier, and I'll tell you why. We install ERVs and CERVs, which they have to be done just right, because what you're doing is you're transferring, you're taking heat from outside and during the summer, hot humid air, and bringing that inside. And there's a transfer of that heat where it's supposed to grab the heat and the moisture and not let it come in. But the dehumidifying the ventilating dehumidifier, that's what I love, because it's already dehumidifying. So it takes that out, and just you see that it's a simpler way.
Now, another question came in. It's a two-parter. First of all, we've mentioned SEER rating a lot. What does that mean, and how important is a SEER rating when your house is insulated properly? So first of all, first
SEER.
question, what is it?
Yeah, SEER, so seasonal energy efficiency rating.
Oh, that's
Yeah, so essentially that is how much energy you're going to consume.
Okay.
And like I said, I always put things in car analogies, just because typically a lot of people, even if you don't know a lot about cars, if somebody says SEER is like miles per gallon in a vehicle, the higher the SEER, the less electricity you consume. So that's the SEER. SEER is
Okay.
miles per gallon.
And then the follow-up to that question was, how important is a SEER rating when the house is correctly insulated?
Very important. I would say it's more important if it's correctly insulated than non, because what it is if you go with just a 14 SEER, right, which is going to turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off. For a house that's really, really tight, it's not going to dehumidify. And also, it's just going to dump one speed. It's going to dump all the air it can and shut off. So it's very important to have a higher SEER unit on a properly insulated home.
Is it a waste of money on a poorly insulated home?
It's not, but you need to do a lot of other things to get your best bang for your buck.
Right.
All right, another question sent to the CarolinaContractor.com website is, how can a homeowner tell their unit size and how old their unit is? And it's not like, well, maybe it is. Opening the door jamb of a car gives you a lot of information on your car.
Yeah, so going out to the outdoor unit, I wish every manufacturer would do it the same, but they don't. Some manufacturers, they'll actually put, the tonnage on there. It'll say a 3-ton air conditioner. Some of them will just have, a model number with 036. Some of them use 038, which is still a 3-ton. I always tell people the best thing, go outside, take a picture of that model number, go to Google. It'll tell you.
That's how you get the manufacturer date of a guitar, the serial numbers. They don't make sense when you look at them. It's just a side note I'd throw in.
Yeah.
Fender Stratocasters are notable for that. A couple more questions here. We've got John Ferris of Boer Brothers Heating and Cooling in. We're talking about HVAC units, HVACs or HVACs. What does HVAC service include, and how often do you recommend having your system serviced?
Yeah, so we recommend twice a year, and that's general across the board, because you can only check the heating when it's a certain temperature outside, and you can only give proper refrigerant readings on when it's cooler outside. So when we come in, we're going to check all the moving components. You're going to check your refrigerant levels. You're going to check the airflow. You're coming in, you're checking your capacitors, your gas. If you have gas heat, it's always a good thing to have that person come in, because we look at the gas line.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times we'll go into a home and we find things before the homeowner will. I go in a crawl space and it might not even be heat and air related, but you're crawling to the furnace and you notice, wait, there's a lot of water coming in here. And how many people go in their crawl space a lot? You don't. Typically, you'll find out about something like that when you go to sit on the toilet or something and it comes through. Yeah. So we see that a lot. And going back, we're checking everything. It's like going in and having your oil changed on your car, right? You're going to do that even if you don't reach the mileage. You're going to do it at least twice a year,
right?
Because that's an investment, right? And this is protecting your investment. We can a lot of the times catch things before it turns into a big ordeal.
Is there something a homeowner can do to the outside unit? I've seen sometimes these sprays. They say, hey, spray this on, hose it off. Or if you're getting twice yearly services, should you let your tech take care of that stuff?
I would let the tech take care of it, because there are a lot of people that you may buy something that it says that it's a coil cleaner, but it's very corrosive. So then you spray that on the outside, it starts to eat away at that metal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have people, they'll spray it on. They may take a phone call, forget to rinse it off. Well, now it's sat on there. The best thing to do is just keep a clear area around those outdoor units.
Right.
The code is you should at least have 3 feet around that unit, because it's going to be able to breathe. Mm-hmm. You want it to breathe, and you want a technician to be able to work on it. The last thing you want to do is have to bring a weed eater and cut down a bunch of stuff just to get to the unit. And we have to do it all the time, and you have to charge accordingly. It's not just, hey, come and do this. No, we had to go through a jungle to get to that unit, right, and found out, well, if we would have just kept that area clean, you wouldn't have had this issue.
Yep, makes sense.
And we had a guy come out and service our unit one time. We did not know this, talking about things that they find that you wouldn't notice as a homeowner. One of our dogs, every time the unit would go on, it would make it temporarily go crazy, and he was running to the back unit and gnawing on the power line.
Ooh.
Now all he got through was it's the power line insulation, then a plastic insulation cover over that. He'd gotten through that, and teeth marks were showing up in the insulation, and the guy said a few more times and he may have made it through and you would have had a fried dog. And I'm like, man, if only the cats would chew it. But what he did, and he didn't charge, he said, here's what I did. I temporarily wrapped it up with electrical tape. He said, you can go to Lowe's if you want to, right around the corner, and they put more insulation on it that he can't bite through. But that's a great example of he was just there to service it and noticed this is getting gnawed on. This is going to kill whatever's chewing on it if they keep doing it.
And Eric, I kind of want to touch back on what you said about your dog around the unit.
Mm-hmm.
Male dogs, I don't know why, but they love peeing on an outdoor unit.
They're marking it.
They mark it, and unfortunately that urine is just so corrosive that you'll come in and we take the cover off and it's gone. Those coils are corroded. And people say, well, I don't know how. And then you look over and Fido's over there just kind of winking at you, saying, that was me. But we can tell that. And that's something big, like have a barrier around it. Make it where kids, when I was young, I know, like going to church, I would always like put my name in the big units out back, in the grill. Right. And that's a terrible thing to do. But you want to keep that, you want to keep it free, because kids and pets, they're going to explore. And a lot of the times, it's going to cost you a lot.
Yeah, man, they do. We got time for one more question, and that is, how important is zoning?
Donnie kind of touched on this, and zoning is very important. If you only have one unit, so a lot of homes, especially the newer homes, they'll have one unit that serves upstairs and downstairs. Mm-hmm. And we go into homes that are from the 70s, and they still only have one unit, and they always complain about, man, the upstairs is always 10 degrees hotter. Yes, because it never knows what the upstairs is, because the temperature is dictated by the thermostat in your home. Mm-hmm. So if that thermostat is downstairs it's going to really satisfy that thermostat
Right.
really quickly, and that airflow can't get upstairs. So we do a lot of zoning. We do a lot of historic homes too, and kind of retrofit things. But if you only have one unit and you have a at least 2 or 3 story home, it has to be zoned now by code.
What is the zoning board? I know it was about $1,500 for the board itself
Yeah,
10 years ago.
Yeah, so it's still about $1,500 for the board. Now you have the automatic dampers. You have your labor of running it. So a zone system can start about $2,800 and go on up. A lot of the variable speed that we talked about, the true variable speed.
Right.
Now that zoning system is a lot more sophisticated because, again, that's going down to a quarter of its capacity, and when it's a true variable speed, the outdoor unit, the thermostat, and either the air handler or the furnace, they're all communicating with each other. And then so once you add the zoning system, here's another component that's communicating as well. But it's the best. I tell people, if you only have one unit, it's a lot cheaper just to zone it than to add a second unit, run electricity to the attic, all new duct. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Sounds like you have a serious relationship with your HVAC system, man.
I do. Unfortunately, I do. It's a love-hate.
Well, Josh Farragus with Boer Brothers Heating and Cooling, we thank you so much for coming in today. Enlightening. Again, I'm just the average person. I know the basics. Donnie knows a lot more than I, but I could tell your face several times was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm glad you got to come in. And if you have a question for Josh or you just want to put it up to Donnie to try to answer it, go to the website, thecarolinacontractor.com. Again, that's where you can find the Ask the Contractor button. And we'll have a video of this show up in a few days. So after you listen to it on the radio, you can go onto the website and find the YouTube link. And if you want to hear past episodes, you can go to the website and download it. We've got the podcast page there. Our number one fan happens to be in today too, Josh, because you said you listen to him all the time.
I do.
He even knows my mother-in-law jokes. He's so good. And if you have an issue with your roof, we've talked about that's one of the HVAC and roof are the most important investments and biggest investments in your house. Contact SureTop Roofing. Donnie can help you out with that. Their website is SureTopRoofing.com. You might not even know there's anything wrong, but a big thing is like servicing an HVAC unit, you can find problems before they become serious. Donnie,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so contact SureTop Roofing, let them come out, look at your roof, or if you just know it's time to get a new one, you can set up an appointment with them and they'll come out there and do everything. And by the way, Donnie, side note, I know how we talked about you have a drone?
Yep.
And I said, when we're going to have rocket launchers and flamethrowers on it, China's invented one.
Oh, no, really?
It's a drone that they use to get bee nest out of very high trees, and it works.
Wow.
You can't buy it yet, but they're like 15, 20 grand, but it looks great. A drone goes up and just flames just pour out.
I just thought about rigging mine up with an aftermarket Roman candle setup and a few zip ties. What do you think?
Same thing, man. Look at that. So for the 4th of July, we'll have the show going on with that.
Yeah.
All right, if you have, again, any questions, go to the website, thecarolinacontractor.com. And if you have any issues with your roof, contact Donnie, because the best thing Donnie can say about your roof is what?
Your roof looks great. Call me next year.
And we'll see you next week on the Carolina Contractor
Thanks,
Show.
brother.
Hey, that was great, man.
For real. Funny, man. That was good. That was killer.
Okay.